My fellow Americans, let me be clear. Now, the greatest threat to our national security is Ahmadinejad, Iran. We can't let them get nuclear weapons. Well, look, seriously, guys. The thing is, like, the U.S. nowadays is trying to be the international police of the world. And the reason why we have all these problems in the Middle East with Iran, with the conflict between Iran and Israel, is because we give foreign aid to all these different countries. And that's really just adding to our debt. I mean, currently, our national debt has grown to over $16 trillion. I mean, I'm sure that's a number that's been thrown out multiple times throughout this convention. I mean, just think of it, just put it in perspective. From 1789 to 1998, our debt was $5 trillion. So, and now today it's 16 trillion. So just in the past decade or so of just government spending. Also, keep in mind that $4 trillion of our debt is held by China and Japan alone. I mean, it's going to be obvious that if we owe money to China and Japan, they're holding our debt, they're naturally going to be able to influence U.S. policies in our foreign policy. And another problem with our national debt is basically, put it simply, Congress or our federal government is spending money at a rate that is faster than they can borrow, tax, or print. What's the problem with this? Well, the problem is inflation. Now, you get a question oftentimes, it's like, why are gas prices so high? Well, the liberal answer is, well, oh yeah, the price of crude oil, it's just going up everywhere in the world, you know. Well, look, the reality is that if you look at an article published by the Wall Street Journal, the price of oil in dollars over the past 10 years has gone up 35%. I mean, 350% in the past 10 years. And the price of euros, 200%. But in the price of gold, it stayed flat. What does that mean? It's not that the oil is becoming more and more expensive, it's just that our dollar is becoming more and more weak. It's becoming devalued. That's the real problem. I mean, back in 2006, an ounce of silver bought 4 gallons of gas. And nowadays, in 2012, an ounce of silver buys 11 gallons. I mean, what does it mean? It doesn't mean that oil is getting any more expensive. In fact, oil is actually becoming more and more abundant as more drilling takes place. The problem is our federal government, they're spending money and they're printing this fiat currency, which is essentially fake. I mean, it's not backed up by anything. And that's really adding to the inflation. I mean, when we went into Iraq, all right, Operation Iraqi Liberation for oil, all right? We were there to supposedly get the oil, protect the oil, and just essentially take the oil. Well, back then, when we went into Iraq, the price of oil was $27, and today, it's $109. Essentially, all this fighting in the Middle East does, it just creates more conflict and it drives gas prices up. And it's really just not, I mean, it's just making enemies around the world. I mean, the United States is trying to be the world police, trying to tell everybody else what to do, and the thing is, we just can't afford this. We can't afford this empire. I mean, if you look at Rome, if you look at previous empires, when the currency collapses, so goes the empire. And that's really what's going to happen in the United States if we continue on this path of spending money where we don't need to spend it and where it's not constitutionally even justified. I yield my time to questions.
How much time is remaining? Okay. How much time is remaining? 3 minutes. Okay. Do you have enough time for questions? Any questions? Okay. Is there a question?
Does the speaker have a solution for this problem?
Absolutely. I'm a big supporter of Ron Paul's plan to restore America, the budget for 2013. Now, here's the problem. We need to eliminate a lot of federal currencies. Like, not eliminate, but I mean, like, we need to give alternative currencies. Because right now, as of now, we don't have any parallel currencies that are legal. And the thing is, what everyone uses is a dollar. It's essentially this piece of paper that's really not backed up by anything. What Ron Paul proposed in his plan was to allow private companies to have private currencies that are actually backed by real gold and real silver, so that the consumer would have a choice if whether or not you want to use the U.S. government, Federal Reserve's dollar that's really just not backed up by anything, or do you want to use a private currency that's actually backed up by gold and silver. So over time, we'll gradually, overall the point is we want to introduce parallel currencies and that'll just curb inflation. I mean, realistically, the price of gas, I mean, the idea, I mean, Ron Paul's campaign promise is like, oh, well, Gingrich can get it down, gas down to $2 a gallon, I can get it down to a dime. I mean, realistically, if you base the price of oil based on gold and silver, it really hasn't changed over the past, for several decades now. is obviously, allow the free market to do what it needs to be done. We don't believe, I personally don't believe in regulation of the free market. I believe that these big businesses are going to help get our economy back on track. And yeah. Yeah.
Would these parallel currencies only be tradable within that corporation or company?
No, the parallel currencies, the whole point is the federal government would have to legalize these parallel currencies to be used in the United States. So for example, I would be able to use this parallel currency to say, oh, I want to buy an iPod, I'll use this parallel currency that's actually backed by real gold. It's not fake money, essentially. It's not fiat currency.
Any more questions? Okay, the chair will deliver time.
Alright, 2 words. 9/11. Why did we get attacked? Look, this is no surprise. We have been bombing Osama bin Laden's camps in the Middle East for the past decade. These airstrikes were unconstitutional and they were adding to our debt. Essentially, the unconstitutional actions of our federal government is what provoked this so-called attack on our nation. That's the first point I want to address. The next point I want to address is the fact that Iran and Israel, the threat of a nuclear Iran. Oh yeah, Iran's giving nuclear weapons to Hamas or funding to Hamas, whatever. Look, a wise man once said in his farewell address, avoid entangling alliances. That man was George Washington. When George Washington left the presidency in 1787, no, not 17, but whatever. But when George Washington left, he basically warned American government to avoid entangling alliances, and that's exactly what we had with Israel. Why are we funding Israel? Why are we putting all this stuff, all this support in Israel? This is the root cause of all the problems and all the tensions in the Middle East is because we're backing Israel. This entangling alliance is going to bring us into a war with Iran, and it all goes back into, it adds to our debt. We're funding Israel with money and weapons. That adds to our debt. That's why we have tension in the Middle East. It all goes back to our debt. It all goes back to the unconstitutional spending of our federal government. Our federal government, our founding fathers never imagined our federal government to be spending money on supporting Israel, spending money on bombing airstrikes around the world and trying to have this global empire and being the world police. That's not what our founding fathers envisioned this federal government to be. Alright? Now, I just want to quickly clarify some solutions I mentioned. I mentioned the concept of parallel currencies. Now, the thing with somebody asked me about how gold price of gold has gone up. Okay, let me just make it very simple because I think some people are just overthinking this. We can all agree the price of gold has gone up, right? The price of oil has also gone up. So that means the value of the dollar has gone down. It's just that simple. Price of oil goes up, price of gold goes up. The dollar's been devalued. Now, what is the problem with the devaluing of the dollar? As my opponent mentioned, the collapse of the Roman Empire, collapse of the Tang Dynasty, whatever. All these things, empires collapse, have one thing in common: the collapse of a currency. Now, a more recent example would be the collapse of Germany in World War I, the hyperinflation, where it would take stacks upon stacks of marks just to buy a measly piece of bread. Where, close your eyes and imagine, what's worse, global warming or the fact that women, or actually mothers, were selling themselves into prostitution just to be able to provide for their children, simply because the currency collapsed. Now, personally, I think this is really messed up. The collapse of the dollar would lead to unprecedented consequences. And if you agree that this is really messed up too, you should vote yes on this resolution. And our debt is our greatest threat. Thank you.